The over week-long Western Cape taxi strike over the impounding of vehicles has been called off. 5 people, including a British national, have died. Hundreds of thousands more were left stranded as a result of the stay away. 500,000 pupils couldn't make it to school. 20,000 teachers couldn't make it to class. So this decision to cancel the stay away follows talks between SANTACO and the Western Cape government and the city of Cape Town. Let's unpack the story further. We're joined this morning by SANTACO's Western Cape Chairperson, Mandla Hermanus, who joins us on the line. We'll also get your reaction from the Western Cape Teachers Forum with Llewellyn van der Ross. Mandla, I want to begin our discussion with you this morning. It's been called off after 8 days, but of course the big question is, at what cost? Part of that answer is the loss of 5 people's lives.
Yes, it's absolutely regrettable that it had to get to that, and we convey our sincerest condolences to all the families who have lost their loved ones. But we would hope that the investigations would not lead to the arrest of all the people who were responsible for that, as well as the violence, the destruction to property, because we do not encourage lawlessness. But we are relieved that we have been able to find some resolution, even though there are still a lot of matters that must still be discussed and ironed out between us and the government of the Western Cape.
Yeah, the issue of impoundments is the important one, isn't it? It was the sticking point with this,
yes,
with these negotiations. So over the next 14 days, what are some of the resolutions insofar as impoundments that you're hoping to make as SANTACO?
For now, we have agreed on what we have always been agreeing on in any event, that there are non-negotiable infringements that we understand should lead to impoundment of vehicles. And we were saying everything else other than those critical things should not necessarily lead to the impoundment of vehicles, but rather should lead to the punishment of the driver who's misbehaving. So now we have agreed on the critical things. That is a vehicle that is not roadworthy, a vehicle that does not have an operating license, and a vehicle that is being driven by an unlicensed driver. And we have always maintained that those are non-negotiables, even from our side as we transport paying passengers. And then there are other issues that the city would like to add to impoundable offences that they deem to be serious enough to warrant an impoundment. Right. So we are saying, let's define those. So that's what is going to happen in the next 14 days.
Right. One of the things that the Cape Town Mayor, Jordan Hill-Lewis, has said, Mandla, with the cancellation, the calling off of the strike, is that SANTACO actually accepted the same proposal that the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape government originally put on the table as far back as last Friday. That was when the strike was 24 hours old. And so much damage to the economy, to people's bread and butter issues, including that loss of life that we talked about. So much of this, all of this, could have been avoided. Is that a fair statement to say that this was on the table last Friday, a week ago?
It's not a fair statement, and it's also disappointing, because then it brings into question whether these negotiations and discussions we are having, how authentic are they, if such kinds of statements can be made by the mayor that seeks to portray us as the villains, as it were. Because if those were our proposals from the word go, in fact, it wouldn't have even gone to a point where we had to embark on a stay away if the things that we have agreed on were agreed on at the task team. Because we've always maintained that the way the law is applied to the minibus taxi industry, everything and anything, any infringement and any offense, there were no minor offenses or serious offenses. Any traffic violation would result in the impoundment of your vehicle, which now it's becoming clear that, in fact, there are only few infringement that should lead to impoundment of vehicles. And that's what we have been saying. That's why we have been saying we are being targeted. So if what we agree on now had been agreed on even as a task team, there would never have been a need even for the stay away. So that statement is not correct by the mayor.
Mandla, please stay on the line. I want to bring in Llewellyn van der Ross, who is with Western Cape Teachers Forum on the impact. Llewellyn, good morning. Thanks for your patience this morning. The impact on learners and, of course, teachers as well. Tens of thousands of teachers unable to get to class over the past 8 days.
Good morning, Michelle, and good morning to the viewers. The impact on teaching and learning, I think it has been significant. I think on Friday already, when the strike was 24 hours old, the Minister of Education in the Western Cape, Mr. David Mayneer, released something to say that over 287,000 children has lost teaching time on the first day of the strike already, and it just escalated from there. So the impact is significant. One day of teaching lost is one too many. And yes, we perhaps do understand the concerns of the Taxi Association, but it is now had a ripple effect on many, many things, especially on teaching and learning. And I also think the fear and the anxiety that was instilled within learners and within teachers, and then social media obviously contributing to that fear and that anxiety that people experience, to the point where zero turn-up of learners came about. So in my opinion, I think from a teacher perspective, significant impact on lost teaching and learning time. Yeah.
I mean, Llewellyn, it's fair to say that there was significant teaching and learning lost in some areas. I'm just looking at the statement from the Western Cape Education MEC, where he explains the decision to keep schools open. It was to ensure that continued teaching and learning as far as possible would take place. But it was only in some areas, and fair to say predominantly white areas, where there was less learning time loss.
Well, I'm not too entirely sure about the specific demographic areas that might have been affected or might not have been affected. I think at the core of it all, there were some people who were affected by the taxi strike, and teaching and learning had gone lost in some places due to the strike. As to which specific areas or who were advantaged or who were disadvantaged, I think that's another discussion for another day, and I cannot comment on a factual basis on that point.
So what's the plan now? What's the directive for teachers insofar as yet again being in a situation where we try to make up time?
I think the onus is on school management teams and teachers now to strategize and see how to remedy the situation. As I said, one day of teaching lost is one day too many. So the teachers and the school management teams will have to look at recovery plans for the week of teaching that has been lost. I think currently we are in, I know that we are currently in week 4 of term 3, so next week we'll be in week 5 of term 3, and again it is just catching up with the curriculum for the lost time, and the teachers, like myself, will have to strategize and see how we can make up lost time.
Yeah. Mandla, thank you for your patience and for waiting on the line. I want to get your parting shot on this issue. You know, SANTACO has apologized to commuters for starting this strike in the middle of a workday, leaving commuters stranded last week. We know that there's been widespread impact, Mandla. What is the commitment from SANTACO if we're in a position like this again, where there are sticking points between the council and between whatever provincial government, the Western Cape in this case? How do you go about raising your grievances then?
For us, our prayer is that the government must treat us as people who are critical in the provision of public transport in the province. And that must be reflected in the negotiations that we continue to have with government. And also, when we have those negotiations and discussions, the approach by law enforcement should reflect that there are negotiations, instead of them having roadblocks coming as hard as they can on us, thereby, because that also incites our members to say, look, you guys are talking on our behalf, but as you talk, what is happening on the ground does not reflect that you are talking to government, you are trying to resolve these issues, because what is happening on the ground is the opposite. So we would hope that we would all be committed, there will be genuine commitment from both sides to say, we are partners, we need to provide a service, we need to improve the quality of this service, and let's do everything, both the industry and government, to ensure that we never have to go back to a situation like what we have witnessed in the last 8 days.
And that there will be 36 hours notice ahead of any planned strike action by SANTACO as well. Mandla Hermanus is SANTACO's Western Cape chairperson. Also in conversation with us this morning, Llewellyn with the Western Cape Teachers Forum. That is the big headline story coming from the province. Taxis are back on the road this Friday morning.